you or follow along, but I'm gonna do whatever I want. I make the rules, I don't play along. I do whatever I want, and I ain't asking you if I'm right or wrong. I do whatever I want, stuck in your head like a song. I'm both the king and the calm, so sticky 'cause I got the sauce. I'm everything on the menu, so dope that
everybody. This week we are building on a tree that we started last week using the V9 modeler. This is a games resolution tree. And we started using our photogrammetry tools to attach our branches and pieces onto this. And so this week we're going to be doing more of the upper canopy stuff. We're actually going to make the leaf cluster together and do all of the texture editing that we want to do, and then we're going to just shape up the top of the tree. This version I'm using is in beta, but a lot of the techniques we're using today you can use with SpeedTree 8, and they're going to be pretty much identical. So that's the good news here, and you can ask questions as we go along, so if you're in chat, don't be afraid to speak up and just kind of ask what we're doing. And we're making sure. Can everybody hear me okay? That's too good. Alright, well, let's get started. If we left off last week, we were here with our floating tree. We made a little bit of a different shape on the top. And our file here is not quite as complicated as this one because it didn't have quite as much going on. We used the mesh converter to attach these pieces, as well as some baked stitches, which we have not baked out yet. And we'll probably do that more towards the end of the file. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, to make our upper canopy, we have not added any sort of extra branches or anything coming along the outside of the tree. And one of the ways we do that is by an actual bare texture that looks like this. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. That guy is flat, and he's making up the predominant upper canopy of this, and then all of our other cluster files are going to attach off of this guy. To make a texture file, you just want to start a new file. This is one that we have. This is the one that I was working from, but we're just going to start a new file and do the whole thing from scratch just so you can see. We're going to go File, and then New. You can start with our cluster template, or we can start with a blank file. If you're starting from scratch, the only difference is that this is in a different viewport, but I like to build out the top part just real fast. If you have the VFX version, which is what we've done in the past couple of weeks, you can actually just focus in on a branch that you've already made, but we'll start from scratch. I'm going to set this up on a tube, so we're just going to add from our templates a trunk tube. And we're going to just add a single branch coming off. This is set to generation style absolute 1, because I just really need the 1 there. And now that we've got that on there, we're going to go ahead and change our view to Window, Viewport, XY Plane. And you can see that we are not facing the right way. I want to actually bring that guy up. And so I'm going to grab the branch, and I'm going to go to the Gen Properties. I'll make this a little bigger so you can see. And we are just going to rotate that to where we would like it. I've got some good noise going on in there. I don't think we need to be too fancy with it, but this is going to be the base for our texture. One of the things you want to do is, depending on how big you're sending your texture file out, you can go ahead and go to Global Properties and turn on the screen safe frame, and it's going to let you box in your screen so you can make sure that you're in the right spot. It's under the window properties. Sorry about that. I'm going to make it a little bigger. Even though it's still square aspect ratio and it doesn't matter. And so now I know that I'll be clipping if I go outside of the red line. Just making sure you guys are all in chat. We're going to go ahead and add our textures in here. I need a bark to put on here, and I need a leaf. I only have one leaf available, and so we're actually going to do some adjustments on here in Photoshop so you can see what we do normally. We normally would load in all of our seasons and everything in there. We're going to go ahead and add a bark. Just going to go up a folder. We have our bark in here that we made last week. I'm just going to use the main bark there. Just going to drag and drop that on. I don't really think I need to mess with the UV tile too much, but I've got a little repeat there, so I might actually switch that up. I'm going to grab the main branch and make sure that we're just tiling at once by putting an absolute 1 in the tile. And then I might try to stretch it out a little bit so I don't have that repeat there. So we're going to go to the scale and just kind of push it up. And it's not too bad. Let's just actually twist it around a little bit, and then you won't see that repeat in the texture. It's going to be so teeny tiny that it doesn't super matter. We're going to add some branches in here. I like to add interval style here. So it's on absolute now. I'm going to switch this to interval, and I'm going to put it on 2 so that the branches are coming off opposite each other and they're already parallel with the screen. We are going to fill this out. Just put some more branches on there by increasing the frequency. I've got a lot of noise on this other branch, and so they're going to be bending and turning different ways, and I'm completely okay with that. You can put as many polys as you need to in your cluster file because you're not spending them, you're just going to send out a flat texture. And so for these, so we can make it really detailed, we're going to go ahead and add a couple more in there. So I'll just show you fast scribe mode. I'm just smoothing out the actual branch texture that we're going to send out by adding a couple more of these in there. So just a couple more relative and a couple more radial. I'd never have this many in the actual tree. And that looks about good for me. I'm not doing anything too fancy, but I am going to make the bare file first. So before we even get the leaves on there, we kind of want to look and take a look at what the actual tree does in the wild. I always pull up some reference photos, and so the Kashima maple that I'm making has these really cool red tips on them. This is a pretty souped up photo. The color variation there. This is not a Kashima, but it's nice and bendy. It's a different kind of maple, and our tree today is definitely very contrived. So this nice little shelfie pattern is what we're going for on the tree. It's like a soft green yellow in there, and so we're going to be focusing on making that kind of a pattern. The branches themselves aren't too crazy, so we will try to mimic that. This is going to be our large cluster. So we're going to make one bare and then one with large with the leaves, and then we'll make a smaller fill cluster that will attach to the end. We're going to go ahead and add a little bit of noise to these guys. I'm using the late noise. I'm going to use smooth on this just to keep it from looking too elbowy. And we're going to change up the start angle. I'm just going to add a little bit of variance in there because these want to go different directions. I probably have a little too many branches right now, but we're going to maybe just knock out some naturally. Maybe not the end ones by grabbing the knockout slider and saying don't knock them out on the end. And we will see what we can do from there. I'm not going to worry too much about getting them quite exact because I'm just going to do a lot of node edits on these guys. And I'm going to go ahead and add a second set of branches and attach them to the actual branch there. These are going to be the short filler guys. I want these to actually hold the leaves themselves. So we are going to kind of open up that start angle. Something to keep in mind is that your normals will point whatever direction these branches are. So if you look in the perspective viewport and your branches are going down or up, you will see that the normal is going to send out that way. So in order to keep those more on the same lighting, you can make them more parallel. In this case, I don't mind. I just don't want them to flip back on themselves. A lot of times when I'm doing a cluster file like this, I will just go ahead and add a planer in there. And then that way I can use this whenever I need to push those branches back out. So on these end branches, I might do something like this in the Force tab and select on for the planer. And now they are more in line with what I want to send out. I also want to go ahead and line this up just so I don't have too extreme of an angle there. And we're going to go back to the XY plane view and zoom in. And we are going to go ahead and do a quick save. This is my cluster. I already have several files in there, so just adding to the mix there. I'm going to hide the force just because I don't really want to see it when I'm working. And there we go. Next thing we need to do is bring in our leaves. Probably going to end up having some more twigs in there. Right now, because I am zoomed out, if you look at it like this and you try to think about what this is going to look like on the tree, we might want this branch to be a little fatter than it actually would be in real life, because we don't want to waste the texture that we're sending out with this bare tree. We want to be able to see it from far away. If you kind of look at the tree, it actually needs to be a little bit beefier than you think. Even though you're up here on it, and then the end piece is not very convincing if you pay too much attention. When we're back here is about the viewing level we want to think about. And so we'll go back to our cluster and we're going to actually make the radius just a little fatter. Going to just add little absolutes in there. Make these guys a little beefier too. I'm actually going to taper these off so they do end. I don't want to do a whole lot with caps or anything. And we're going to go ahead and bring in a leaf. I'm going to go ahead and add in the green leaf. I think I did that just a second ago. I totally did. And I forgot already. So here's our terrible PBR leaf. We haven't done any edits to it. I wanted to take a second and mention that if you need to Photoshop these guys, I only had one leaf when we started. We scanned these from an arboretum and it was fall and they were already red, and so I don't have the green leaf for this guy. And so all I did ahead of time was I took that leaf into Photoshop. And this is how we go ahead and create extras there. My layers got closed down for some reason. Trying to figure out where my Photoshop layer went. I've got the window open and I'm looking for the actual property over here. Well, I can't seem to find that. All I did for these guys was go ahead and make a second. I just duplicated it. You can change your colors and everything that you need to inside of SpeedTree, so there's no real need to edit it. But I did take a second to create one with a tip on it. And so all I did was I added a green layer copy and I erased and kept the tips in there. Just so you can see that guy. And there we go. We're going to go ahead and add it. We want to click on the smaller branches there. We probably need these as the fill branches, so I'll probably end up having like 1 or 2 leaves on this guy and then having some actual more fill in there. We're going to go ahead and see what that looks like by adding a leaf. This is the leaf mesh, and you can see that they are actually on there very tiny, but they're turned the wrong directions. The first thing I do is I do skyfluence all the way because I want them facing towards me, and that will give us more control over their direction. we're going to go to the material bars, and we're going to go ahead and say that we want that leaf in there. We have not made a cutout for it, and so that's why it's on this simple cutout right now. So let's go back to our leaf and go to the cutouts and meshes tab, and we are going to hit edit and cut this guy out. I don't have to cut this out very carefully because it's not going to cost me anything. So what I might do is use our new fast tool here. You can say 10 and have it look at the whole image, and it's going to go ahead and add some points in there for me. And then I might end up scooting these towards the center just to get them lined up. One thing that I do like about this leaf mesh is that I want to be able to fold and curl it kind of along with the leaf part itself, but I did include the stem in the scan there. I think we're just going to leave it on there and see what it looks like, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the pivot down there. I'm going to put just an extra point there and there. I'm going to do tessellation really fast. I don't care about my LODs, so I'm just going to save out the high. And it's a little crazy in the poly count there, but it works for what we're doing. Let's click out of the box, and we're going to go ahead and hit the leaves and hit the materials. We're going to put two-sided on these guys, and we are in the beta build, and so every now and again it will do this where it just is streaming the texture in and it's taking a second to catch up. Hopefully that will be worked out by the time it is out in the wild. We're going to go ahead and do our PBR adjustments on this leaf. So selecting it, brought it back in there. You'll notice that this normal map is not super exaggerated, and that's probably okay for what we're using. We're going to use SpeedTree's lighting since this is a cluster file versus the actual map. What I do like from this map is the stem, and so if we can get a little bit of information out of there, it might look okay. We're going to see what that looks like. See, it's a little too speckly with the normal boosted up, so we're going to actually just leave it as it is. We're going to make these guys a little bigger. I'm going to zoom out and just see. On my big cluster, I had probably about 20 or so leaves on there. So just kind of thinking about the size of your leaves and according to the cluster size. We are going to go ahead and add these guys opposite of each other. So instead of absolute, I'm going to put it on interval. Phyllotaxy is another good generation style to use for making the leaf structures, but I prefer interval because it's a little easier to control. I'm just going to kind of fill that guy out. I want these guys to lean in just a little bit towards each other. And the little crinkly pattern is really funny. Around there. Chat is so quiet. I looked over to see if I was missing anything, and y'all aren't. Oh, I was missing part of the chat. The chat wasn't loading for me. Well, hi everybody. To answer Titan's question, yes, you can definitely make flowers with SpeedTree. We're actually going to add some flowers onto one of these clusters because I didn't add that into the tree. In a games tree, it's just going to be the cluster itself sitting within your leaf cluster file. On a VFX tree, you would be constructing the actual cluster. Right off the bat, I just see that I didn't cap that off, and I want to because it's kind of ugly. It's just little details like that that will really help sell it. Now that we've got that on there, we're going to start doing our node edits on the tree to get our branches exactly where we want them so we can make sure that we have the right number of leaves on the tree. There's some definite overlap here, and so we'll be getting rid of that as well. I've got my branch pretty centered. I'm going to leave myself enough room so I can do the cutout meshes when I get it exported. And we're going to start moving these guys around. You can use the art director tool by hitting tab. We're going to go into node mode to do these so that we're moving just the branch one by one. The art director will let you swing these guys and shorten and lengthen. There's a little bit of a weird funky overlap there, and I think we can fill it in a little better. I kind of want these guys to go up above the end piece. So I might do something where we bend that guy up in a second. Gonna shrink this one down. Yeah, this one's a little long too. We could have done these all by actual properties, but just to save time, I usually end up doing more of this in the cluster file. Really gonna fill out that space there and bend that guy up. And thank you, Milo, for saving my Photoshop thing. It wasn't opening even when I was selecting it in the other screen, so I don't know what the deal was with that. Alright, and these are way too bright right now. They got this like pinky orange thing going on. Our light is at 2, which is a little bright too. You just want to keep in mind that that can be turned up. So one of the things I do when I set up cluster files is I do a lot of swinging of the light. I want to see how light hits this file and what it's going there. And so right now off the bat, I know these are too glossy. Gonna bring down that tone just a little bit and make it not quite so much. I want to step a second into the albedo check. And we want to look and make sure. Right now we've got a little bit of pink in there, so it's just a little bit bright. And we're going to bring that down just a little bit so it's not too bright. That one little spot there is saying that it's white in the center, which I think it is on the actual file. There's like a little white spot, so that doesn't bother me too much. We're going to do the same thing for the subsurface. We're going to check that and make sure it's within range. What I'm doing right here is this warning is telling me that I'm outside of the texture space. So when I export it, it's saying that the pure red is represented as something that's pure white on the tree. And these leaves are definitely not white. We don't want them to be the brightest tone. We want them to be bright, but not quite that bright. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit by bringing the max down and the brightness down just a little bit. And we're going to see what that looks like. A lot of times with the subsurface, it's kind of fun. You can get some nice color if you make them a little yellower than the front. So between the two of these are going to have kind of an orange thing going on. Is there a way to lock the camera in the viewport when making clusters? I do this often, and I think we've gotten multiple suggestions to have like a lock. The right click that Danny's mentioning right now, to right click it in the plane, it's not going to lock it into place. We've talked about adding that in there. He must have just added that in there. There we go. So he already added it in there. I didn't even realize that it had been put in. That window viewport, XY plane, and you can keep it in position. I don't. It's definitely not an 8. I move back and forth all around until I get to the very end. I'm so used to working with V8 that I usually have a save file where I started, and then I make sure to keep it in the same spot, which is less than ideal, but it works. And oh, Michael's on here too. Hi, Michael. Alright, so got a lot of light happening in here. We're gonna go ahead and grab this guy and start doing our edits. On our leaves, we have a lot of specular happening straight on. Our subsurface amount right now is just crazy high. I'm gonna actually drop this down a good bit. Just this map is just mostly white. And I like a nice bright subsurface. A good trick to do with your subsurface is to actually add a gradient on top. This was one that I made in Photoshop, but I actually just painted in a little bit more of a subsurface there so that the tips of my leaves can get light on the back and then they fade out. I don't need the height map in there whatsoever. We're going to change up the size of these guys by going to the skin, and we're going to put some variation in there. And now we're going to start shaping these guys. We want to fold them and curl them so that they have some actual shape differences. And we're going to add a little bit of variance in here. We don't want to fold them over too much, or the tips of the leaves will kind of flip back around. So nothing too crazy. I like to use the vertex noise. It's going to make it look like these are very different leaves, even though this is a very structured plant. We have so many triangles in there that it might get a little too lumpy. So this value might have to be very, very small if I put the noise pattern up. And once I'm comfortable with what that looks like, we can go ahead and start node editing this guy. Ideally, we would set up all of our seasons and get these going. To do that, once I have the PBR correct for these guys, I actually just grab them, duplicate them 4 times. And this is going to be our summer leaf. This is going to be our fall leaf. This is going to be our winter leaf. You can have tons more variations in there, but for the sake of time, I'll just do that. That way I don't have to load these in again, and I can just go ahead and swap out the color and the subsurface on these. Usually for the winter, I swap out the opacity too and just add some holes in here. So for summer, we are going to go ahead and grab the green leaf that I made that is a transition. I'm using the same color map for the back for the subsurface. I didn't even make separate subsurfaces. I'm just going to grab that same one, and I'm actually going to make that one a little brighter, a little yellower. And then we're going to grab our spring leaf, which would be the first one. I'm going to replace it with the green. I could have done this inside SpeedTree as well, but I made an extra one in there. I'm going to use the same color map for this one as well. I'm going to make it a little brighter. That was the wrong map that I grabbed. Grab the subsurface line. There we go. I'm just going to bring the minimum up and then let it do its thing. There we go. So now these are more on there. And on our leaf itself, I could set up an actual, I'm gonna hit save really fast. I could set these up using the seasons materials, like the actual thing, but I think I'm just gonna load these into the leaf mesh for time. We're gonna go to the material and we're gonna add 3 more slots, and we're gonna go ahead and add the fall and the winter and the summer. Okay, and now that they're all on there, they are all showing up at the same time now because we have not set our seasons on these guys. And so we want to go ahead and go through each material. We're going to say this is our spring. There's a drop down in here for easy, just selecting these real fast. We're going to put this on spring. We're going to put the summer. We're going to use the summer curve. You want to kind of pay attention to when they start and end, just to make sure that you do actually cover all your bases. So fall, we're going to just use the fall curve, and I happen to remember that there's this big gap if you don't have a transition leaf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the fall leaf come in a little sooner. I'm just going to pop that up. I'm not saying that there's some overlap between the summer and fall leaf where there will be some greenish yellow and then go into red. And our last one is going to be our winter. I'm going to make it show up even earlier just to make sure we've got it in there. The second thing you want to do on this is our presets for our leaf mesh often have the season set up for like an actual season timeline. We're going to push the drop time all the way to the end and take out the variation, and that way all of our leaves show up all of the time, because I'm going to do the bear on its own and it doesn't need to have its thing. So now they're all assigned already. I should be able to see the transition, and I did not change out the winter leaf, so it wasn't anything spectacular. I guess we want to make the winter one really red, depending on what we could make it dying or dead, and bring the brightness down a little bit. I think I'm just going to lose the saturation on this guy and make it more deadish. Sure that's correct terminology, and let's see what that looks like. I dig it, and right now all of my leaves are kind of changing at the same time, and I kind of want a gradient going. I feel like this tree has a lot of good interest and difference. I think that it would change from plant to plant. So we're going to do that with the season offset. All I'm going to do is I'm going to grab our main branch holding. I'm going to go to the material, and I'm going to just push the offset. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing the leaves from another season farther down the timeline, and we want to push it in, and then we're going to say that we don't want the leaves on the end of the branch to transition as fast. We just want the leaves in the center to change. I could do this vice versa the other way too. I think that it's going to look cooler this direction, so I'm just going to go with it. According to the chunk tube, which is that guy down there, I think that what I should have done is done this farther up. I'm actually going to back this out and do the transition from the second branch. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to push the leaves in there, doing this kind of extremely. And then we're going to say, according to the branch now, I don't want the leaves on the end to transition as fast as the leaves on the inside of the branch. I think that'll look kind of cool. We're going to just check our slider and see what we got and pick our spots appropriately. I've got some areas here that are just really not cute yet, so we're going to fill that in a little bit. I'm going to use the freehand tool. This is a node edit, so it's kind of over there on the end. I'm just going to bend these guys up a little bit to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm going to hit save really fast. And we are going to kind of bend this guy around. I'm going to make this one sort of do like a little elbow pop thing and fill in that space. And just make a little bit more interesting than it already is. You can change the size of this and do like a very relaxed spin. I like to keep the bin kind of small and do smaller movements with them. You can switch to use the art director in this tool by clicking over. If you needed to change the angle up or any of that. You can also hold the spacebar down and change the size of this guy. So if we need to squish him back down a little bit. These guys cut into each other, and that's okay. I'm going to actually go through now and node edit the leaves out that I don't want, just so there's no overlap. So we're going back to node mode, and we are going to just get rid of this guy. I'm going to maybe do a couple of things on these guys so that they are different and interesting. I like that the stick is out right here because this is a good spot to add an anchor onto. And we're just editing and making these guys. I'm just going to delete that. You do want some pockets of space inside your clusters. When your leaves are so crammed together, your tree just looks dense and heavy and all the light is kind of cut out. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is we like these things to be more spaced out than you think they actually should be in real life. There's 2 leaves there, so I'm just going to go get rid of one and kind of curl that one out a little bit. There's a little bit of overlap, and I'm okay with it. I think it looks convincing. Get rid of that one and this one. And if you're not decisive and you're like, oops, I accidentally did that and I don't want to, just save often and these come back to it. That's looking pretty good to me. I think that if you wanted to be extra, you could add some little twigs in here, which I did on the other ones, but you could do some small branches and actually add them to the branch that you want. But these guys kind of act as like little buds. You can change up the radius on those guys by making them kind of circular on the end. But yeah, you can spend as much or as little time as you need to on these guys. I like my color gradation. I'm going to go ahead and change up the normals, and then that's going to be my export out. It looks like Michael answered. I was just making sure I was answering all your questions on the camera locking. Michael seems to have gotten that one, so I'm going to keep going. All right, the next thing we want to do is check our normals before we send it out. So we're going to go to the material, and we're going to go to normal. And these are all relatively flat. So where the normal has turned a little bit, it's because I have actually turned a leaf. Hit save because I didn't remember if I did. And we're going to just grab our leaf mesh and we're going to go through and add just a little bit of adjustments in the lighting. So these, on the leaf mesh in either skin or in the orientation tab, there's a lighting tab. And these are going to let us force the normals into something different. I'm going to use parent puffy on our other file. I'm setting this up without the back face normals on, so we're lighting this somewhat different. There's a bunch of different ways to do lighting in the clusters, and it's really going to depend on your shader and what you want it to look like in the end. But a good rule of thumb is to have a little bit of variation in there so that when you run the light across the tree, you're going to see little glittering puffs of light. If your normal is too contrasted, these little areas here are going to highlight too small, and you're really not going to be able to enjoy the filtery, lovely light that bounces off these guys if they are too small and grainy. And so on the actual cluster file, puffy here is really helpful. So we're going to add some variance in that. I'm just using the regular puffy, not the parent puffy. Just going to add it on a little bit. And then we're going to add some variation into it as well. And then we're going to add some small variations in the up, right, out. Nothing too crazy. Just little bits of variation in each of those guys. And now, as the light shines across this thing, I'm going to get a completely different look. And I don't have all of these guys facing the same direction. If I go back to the standard mode, you're going to see how big that specular highlight is. You can also check the lighting specular and kind of run the light back and forth across there. I wanted to answer Mr. X question right now. You just asked, will V9 be a huge change? Everything we added in V9 is meant to be way easier than that last transition we had. V8 was such a big branch off. We just changed so much that we had to do the update. But the jump from V8 to V9 is basically open up and everything's the same and you just keep working, but you have more features to work from. So you will not have to right click and update. The features that will really change for you that might look slightly different are going to be features using, if you had collision force meshes into the scene, it's going to recompute, and so it will be relatively in the same spot, but it might move just a little bit. I hope that answers. And then asking your question, how would you recommend to light spruce fawns? It's going to be a little bit different depending on how you're setting up your clusters. Basically, my hot tip for spruces or any kind of pine needle is to make the needle a little bit bigger than you think it actually would look, just so you have enough surface to light off. For needles, instead of changing these up so that they're all lit different ways, what you might do is use a curve on the leaf. So if you have a bunch of needles coming out, you want the ends to light up. And so you might do something less with puffy, but where you push them up and use a curve. We're actually going to be making a conifer real soon. We had so many requests for it. So we're going to be doing games lighting and game setup for needles and all that, and it'll be more of a beginner's video, so it might take us a little while to get through, because we're going to do like everything from scratch, but hopefully that will help. When you approach how to set up something or how to add what you need for the tree, how you light it depends a lot on how the actual leaf cluster is hanging on the tree. For example, let's take a look at just a branch. We're going to focus on this guy. All of my leaves here, this is kind of like a shelf setup. So my lighting is all pointing up and out. And the actual shape of the tree is more from these branches that are turned different ways. With a pine tree, because you need it to be 3D and fluffy, you might have more perpendicular cluster meshes. And so you need to think about what it's lighting, like how the viewer is seeing it. Like the light might be straight on it. A lot of that will make more sense if I was doing an actual pine tree. But we'll hopefully apply some of that when we go to the next step. So, I wish I had like a simple file. Maybe I will make a simple file for you guys so I can illustrate that a little cleaner. If we are satisfied with the way this guy is lighting, we can go back to the render mode. And we're going to line it up. I like to save where I have my file in the exact spot that I'm going to be sending it out so that I can just send out a bunch of them in a row. I'm going to hit save. And to export this guy out, you're going to go to export material. I'm going to do this at 2K. I don't need shadows or ground in there. And then I've got all of the maps that I need. So if you have something special that you need sent out, you can always add an image into this. If you wanted to do like a cutout or something that you could use as a stamp later, you could go ahead and send that out right now. I'm going to skip this step because you would actually go through and do each of the seasons right where you're at. And then we're going to turn the leaves off. Did y'all hear me stutter just now? That was pretty great. And do one for our bear and export that out as well. To save time, I've already got them kind of hanging out over here in our file. So I brought in all of our clusters. One thing that I did on this one was I made a small one, and then on that same file, I zoomed in, I focused on one section here, and I saved a second file. For the small sections. I really don't do a whole lot of editing between the two if I'm going to have two files out. I guess I would just keep reuse, recycle. There's no reason to bring in all of those textures again and keep going. One of the things I did with the smaller texture that I made, let's take a look at it. I've got clusters 1 and 2. My cluster 2, I decided to have a section of leaves over here and a section of leaves over here. I did that so I could fold it down the center. So that if I needed to bring this mesh down way small, wasn't sure how many polys I'd have left, I could get some dimension out of it and still keep it 2 polygons. So that was my reasoning behind making it this shape. And let's go ahead and get started on filling out what the top of the canopy is going to be. We're going to start with just one branch at a time and copy them over. Since this is a split, because they have stitches in there, we kind of have to work one at a time. So we're going to start with kind of the main branch and focus in on it even. We are going to add some branches for our fronds to sit off on. I set this other tree up on fronds. You don't have to use fronds for your bear to sit on, but I find it's a little easier for the bear clusters to have that frond to sit on. Alright, another question from Edvin about how the backs look. Tell me about what you didn't like about the back of that. Is it that you have so many needles that you're cutting down on the light coming out? Because that is a pretty common issue where when you're making your cluster, if you have a bunch of needles on here instead of just one leaf, each time that you have that needle, you're multiplying the number of times that the subsurface is added in, and so you end up with very, very dark. One of the things you can do is send out that texture and change the texture itself by editing it in Photoshop, or you can just make sure that your spread is fanned out and not actually a big clump of leaves. You have to tell me a little bit more about what you mean there, or maybe send us a picture. Alright, question from Brian is there a way to save the material export settings? It will save, if I make any changes, do I need to redo those changes each time the file is loaded? It's going to save the settings you last used. So if you come in here and you actually set this guy up as export material, if I make any changes to this, it's going to save this, it's going to save what I set here. So say I wanted to send out a copy of the vertex colors just because if I wanted to cut it out, it'd be the opacity map. This will stay in there every time I do export material until if you closed your computer and came back and you had done a different type of export in the meantime, it won't save it that time. Hope that answers. And they're good questions. I'm glad we're getting questions this week. And I forgot completely what we were doing. We were setting them up on the tree. We would go ahead and add some branches in here. I'm just using a template so I can get it started. Actually, I'm gonna add the tubes in just so we can show you the structure. I'm going to branches and we're doing tubes. These have everything wiped out of them. I use the tubes often when I need to think and I can't think through what I need to do. The first thing I want to do is I want to create a roundish area here. So we're going to change the start angle and push these guys up to where they would be. They're not welded, so they might sit kind of funny, and that's okay. Because you're not going to see these, we're going to add the bear to them. I don't want to shape these a whole lot because our frond is going to sit on them. And we want to kind of see what that looks like right off the bat. So we're going to go ahead and add a frond. We're going to set the material to it. I told you guys I exported out a bear earlier. When you bring in the material, which you're doing from up in here, and add, you're going to go to the cutout meshes, and we're just going to go ahead and make a new one for this one. We'll do it from start. I already made one, so we're going to just exit out real fast. Okay, thought processes here is you want to be thinking about your LODs as you go, your high. You want to think about how high you actually want your highest LOD to be, polygon wise. Now, my tree is about 30K right now, which is pretty big. This is definitely a hero. Can't stream a bunch of these trees every round in your scene. I'm thinking about it in like a garden setting where it's like your character's definitely going to be walking by it, and it's kind of a big deal tree. If you were doing this type of tree and you needed a lot of these guys, I would recommend converting the entire trunk and using the texture from it and using all SpeedTree geometry, because you're going to be able to optimize it a whole lot more than having this crazy base in there. We are adding our points in here. I'm going to add one at the tip of the branch and one at the end of the branch. I'm going to see how low I can go first. I usually make the lowest LOD first, depending on my mood. That's true. And of course I saved this out kind of funny so that one branch is kind of like in the way. So that's as low as I can go for the lowest one, but do I want it to go that low? Because when I scrub the LODs down, I don't really want the branch holding everything. This makes up most of the tree shape to pop and do a flat surface. So I really want that middle bend area in this one. And we're gonna go ahead and I was pretty greedy with this. I let it have 7 polygons. We're gonna go ahead and keep to this, and we got enough to bend and enough to curl in there. And I'm gonna make sure, so when you're not zoomed in, there's something you might run into a lot. When you have these guys puffed out, you wanna make sure that you're not inside of that other one. If you get inside and you have that extra line there, that makes this awkward sliver that we definitely don't want. And that's what the masking tool is for. We want to grab that and put a little dot, and it's going to make sure that we don't have that extra line. We chopped over that branch. It's kind of hard to see. Kind of zoom in on that. I'm just using my mouse wheel to scroll in, by the way. I might have to go out way crazy far in order to get that one branch not cut off. Alright, that's our lowest. Before we save it, we're going to add anchors. As you can see, I added 3 on the other one. We're going to add these in places. I like to add them where I'm actually bending the cluster itself, so that as they wrap around, you can have a new growth popping out, and it looks a little bit more natural that way. But I also want to keep them kind of at the end of the branch. I'm actually going to move that one there instead of the middle, because these are going to hold our big ones. And we're just going to see what that looks like. I have no idea. We're going to go ahead and add our medium and our high there. I kept the high and medium the same just because I was worried about polygons. But having that extra curl there will help it a little bit. So we're just going to see how we do. I'm going to let it go all the way across for the high. And there's our new file. And I'm just reading your comments as we go. Nothing selfish about asking. We're gonna go to our frond and we're gonna assign that material we just made. That was the bear. And we are going to go back to our material and just select it really fast because that made it show up last time. And hopefully it will load in. It's still doing the thing where it's lagging a little bit, where it's like not displaying the material. That's okay, we'll get to it. I'm going to make sure two-sided is on for our bear material. Definitely going to be using that. I don't need the subsurface on a branch, so I'm just going to go ahead and X out these files and put the subsurface on 0. And let's see if we can do something to toggle it. We're going to start giving these guys some shape. Once we bend these down a little bit, they're going to kind of make our main there. The branches that are popping off, I wanted to go ahead and weld them so they were at a good spot. I still don't have my texture showing up, and that's a bummer. I'll see if it actually comes home. We're gonna go ahead and, since we're waiting on it, I don't know what the deal is there. We're gonna make these a little shorter. We're a little bit crazy right now. For doing the canopy in a games tree, yes, it's good to have a little bit of the percent apparent amount and length because it will keep it cohesive if you suddenly resize the tree. On a tree that has a photogrammetry base, all of these are very calculated numbers, and so what I'm actually going to do for this one is make it an absolute amount so I can super control the shape of the canopy. I don't really feel like doing shape control or anything too crazy on this game tree, so this is going to help us control the actual thing there. If I hit randomize on this tree, everything above the photogrammetry mesh is going to be the part that's changing. And we are going to save our file really fast and kind of peek at this one. I don't know if it's because I have too many up and that they're not. I'm going to see if I can just load it in and it'll try again. Hopefully. Gonna bring in just a new cluster just to see if it will load it. And if not, I might have to close it down and start it again. I'll just bring in the summer leaf. This is entirely just a test here. Let's see if it will load in a different one. Oh, that was a mistake. I grabbed the mesh texture just now in the drop down. So it's definitely going to take a second now. I think I'm probably going to have to restart the program for a second just to see if I can get it to load. So that's fine. We just saved and we're not in a bad place. So if you'll bear with me for just a second. We're in the beta 9, so it's definitely got some bugs in there every now and again. Let's see if we can get it back up. And it's taking its jolly good time, so bear with me. If you have any questions, now's a good time. So while we wait for this to open back up, or, you know, how is your day going? There we go. We got version 2 here hanging out. Let me make it sizable for you guys. Yes, my monitor is a very strange size for streaming, so I have to do this one. Alright, let's see if we can kill this again. Sorry about that, guys. And our windows, of course, have changed. That's okay. Computer froze just a little bit. Hope the stream's still going. Hopefully we're good. Alright, we had added on our font and assigned the material. And let's see if we can get this guy to show up. I am going to be real. Of course I did this in the live stream. I inadvertently turned off fronts and that's why they weren't showing up. I feel so dumb right now. That was not a bug. That was totally me. absolutely forgetting what I was doing. So sorry guys, we've got our fronds. If you ever do that, the number keys will hit your I feel so dumb right now. It will hit your fronds or your leaves off so you can view them in a different way, and I think I hit the fronds off at some point. So don't be me. Know that those are there. And we're gonna keep going. I hope everyone is laughing at me for that one. It's really great. Sometimes you guys get on there in the chat and you know what I'm doing and I'm just being a total little idiot. It's lovely. So, alright, right off the bat, we can go ahead and I like to leave these on so we can get them in the right spot. We're going to grab the actual frond and we're going to edit the geometry really fast. I really want to roll these guys around because from back here we want to be able to see the actual structure of the tree. So these are actually going to be more up in the air. I don't want to do too extreme because I've got a curve on this guy. So what I might do is actually let the whole thing roll and then add some variance in there. And if you leave the curve in there, this is going to act like twist does. So the bottom of the tree, the bottom of these are more parallel. And I got questions about sausage-shaped 3D looking branches. Okay, like the end of the pine itself, like the little like I can't even think of what that's called right now. And I'm definitely a plant lady. We will definitely add those little extra baubles on the pine stream if you kind of want to do that. I guess we can do a really dense one. The trick to like dense things is that oftentimes you need more space in between your texture than you think. So hopefully we can illustrate that when we do the actual pine posts. It's gonna be hard with these guys. I'm gonna make these a little longer, just so I can get these branches in there at a little different height. I'm gonna add some variance to the length so we can keep going there. And we're gonna go ahead and set these to skin, and we're gonna put it to spine only. And that will still draw. I've got hints on right now. We added something for the fronds so you can actually see the crossbears now, but if you put the hints on and grab the frond, you can actually see the spines that these guys fold along. So if I grab, fold, and curl, you can see exactly what it's doing now. No, we don't really need all of that right now, but that's really for if you have something weird happening with your mesh. Alright, right off the bat, these guys are floating because I have it set at the start is kind of pushed up there. I'm going to put that to 0 so they go straight there. You'll see stuff popping in and out right now. It's because collision is on. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's off and that all of them are there. And that'll give you a pretty good idea right off the bat that we don't really want the bare fronds to ever go away. So I'm going to put collision on nothing. And then that will allow us to get these where we want. This branch is so bendy that these are kind of bent in too far. I'm going to grab the spine and go to the start angle. And on the inside of the branch, I'm going to make them a little bit wider and puff them out just a bit. And we'll see how we're doing. I think that once we get, I think these guys are just a little too doing the same thing there. I'm going to be careful if you have spine on only when you're using the extend parent. If I haven't capped off that end, you get weirdness there. You get like an open end and then a flat texture coming out the end. You might not care, but that's just something to keep in mind. Oh, and Danny did, that's a really good tree example. The Brazilian pepper tree. He's got it set up, I did not make that one. And he's got it set up with very cross-hatched, systematic branch structures on top. We have too much going on here in the end of the branches. These are going to be too close together to actually get any circular shape. So we're going to go ahead and fix that again. I was back to the start angle. I just got a little too extreme with it, basically. And we'll see how that does. You're also kind of doing the same thing up there. I'm going to go to the frond again. And in the roll, I'm going to kind of make it do something different on the end. Really didn't want that to the tubes. I should have set. Meant to the max. There we go. We just kind of want these to do different things than they're doing on the end. I do want them to bend a lot in the end of the branch. So something like that, just to get them in different setup. Now we're going to go ahead and add our second set of branches, which is going to be our actual leaf mesh. Going to add leaves, set it to the front. These are kind of come off everywhere we put our larger file. I brought this in earlier, but our cluster is going to be in there. One of the things I did not do is set up the seasons. We're going to do that real fast. I'm going to go to Window, Assets, and then Material Sets. Oh, I did. Okay, and so I already set these in there. So I've got one set to the large cluster, and then I've got the wrong one in there. Basically, I want to have... Okay, I didn't bring them all in, basically. I added a fall and a fall 2, but I did not rename these. So real fast, we'll do that so we can stay organized. We're going to do fall. We're going to make this one winter. And then 2 is our small one. We're going to do... This one's just going to be spring, and we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to have a summer. And we'll do that. For the sake of time, we'll just kind of keep our seasons pretty limited, but it should work for now. I'll give it a second to catch up since this will stream in. And we're gonna do season or cluster 2. Spring, summer, fall, and we have a bare one in there. Okay, so this one's going to be our large cluster. We're going to go to the skin tab and select the material really fast. It's going to say large set 1. I have the backs on all these leaves. They should show up. They're really, really tiny right off the bat. So we're going to kind of get these. I'm going to zoom way out, and I'm going to match the size of the leaves and how they should be to the dude there, the SpeedTree. He looks like he's checking himself out in midair. We're going to go to the skin tab and change the size of these guys. Might be a little bigger than actual real life. That looks okay-ish. We're going to go ahead and go to the sky influence, and I'm going to put these all the way up, and that way I know the face normals are this way. I'm going to go to the deformation and go ahead and fold them down and curl. I'm doing this very systematically, and it's because this is such a shelfy tree that we're going to get this set up like that. I think I have probably too few. We're going to go ahead and add the next cluster on there just to make sure that we are filling our space in adequately. We did not make a cutout, I guess, because I did that ahead of time, but we would go to our large cluster. We're going to edit this guy up. One of the things I did with the large cluster was I have 2 assignments. I did that so I could keep track of directions. And so we're going to just erase this whole thing so we can set it up again exactly like we would do normally. I'm going to erase those. Looks like our texture got over a little bit when I sent that out, but that's okay. adding the points. I'm adding the pivot point down along where I would like it to fold. Might even change the angle a little bit. There we go. Gonna go ahead and make a decision to put less clusters on than I actually did the first time. I want it to be able to fold down the middle. That's pretty important. And I have two that ended up there. I'm just gonna watch out for that. I'm gonna kill this one for a second. Everything fits in except for this one little leaf there. There we go. That's a pretty good low. We're gonna go ahead and put our anchors on, and I'm gonna do a couple little anchors. I'm gonna keep them all at one for now. These are gonna be what really make the cluster look 3D and hold its shape and be nice and fluffy. I'm gonna put one extra one here for the, I'm gonna put these on the underside of the cluster. Just to shake things up. There we go. And I ID this too. I'm right clicking to ID these just so that is apparent. And we would say that lowest, and then we would save the medium, and then save the high. That's how we're gonna do that. All right, we can go ahead and add our small cluster on there. Another leaf. One thing to note when you added it and it's on an anchor is that these are going to be in the direction you save the anchor out, and so they're already kind of different, which is completely fine. But a lot of times with these shelfy things, I'm going to turn them up so I can tell exactly where they are. I go to the material tab and put in our small cluster set, small cluster 2. Just looking at what I missed on chat, and yes, I think we're all up to date. Okay, so we don't really want them all doing the flat thing. We want to create a 3D puffy thing with this, and I've got a very foldable small texture here. Our small file, I'm going to show you the cutout I made for that one. Cluster 2. I just made it so that on the highest one and the lowest one, I can always kind of bend these guys over a little bit. So we're going to take these guys and we're going to make them go up from the main cluster. We're going to fold them. Sorry, wrong direction. We're going to fold them down so that that fold kind of makes a little divot. And if we can, we're going to curl it down a little bit. And so we've got a much fluffier thing. I'm doing this a little too extremely, and so there's a really harsh angle there that's not doing me any favors, especially when I come around the edge there. You're gonna see that triangle. So you wanna make sure that when you're setting these up that you're really paying attention to how far you're going. You really don't want a right angle in a leaf ever. So, excuse me. I'm just going to tone back what I just did. So I folded it a little too much. That's what happened there. If I had more polygons in there, I could go even crazier with it. I like the upper. This is a broadleaf, fluffy kind of thing, but we really do kind of want that shelfy look since we're doing more of a set coming off there. So we're going to bend this back down. Wow, I'm having trouble clicking stuff. That's really great. And there we go. Back in the shelfie set there. The next thing we want to do is we want to make sure we're not all the same size. So we're going to go to the skin tab and we're going to add variance in here. Honestly, you could probably go a little tinier with these guys. Just kind of get them into place there. and see how we're doing. Now we've got more of a 3D leaf looking thing going on up here. I'm going to do one more that will be our bottom shape. And so we're going to actually add it on the same. You can right click this and do either add a color or rename it and just put a 1 in there to know that that's my 1 anchor, and that's the tiny one. And we're going to add, I'm actually just going to copy this one and paste it. On this one, I'm going to go to the Gen tab and make sure it's not off of all anchors and just set to 1. Quite a few knocked out of there. And we're going to set this one on here, and we're going to set it to Gen 2. This one is going to be our lower one. So in orientation, it's pushed all the way to the sky. And instead of up, we're going to go down. And let's see if we need to adjust that at all. Might keep them a little flatter, just to make them different. Alright, and all these guys, after we've got our shape in there, let's see how we did. This is a good one to look at. One of the things I'm seeing from this is that I really want the little one maybe to be farther back on the actual cluster. So I can go back to my main cluster. I can go to the material and I can edit the bar here. So right now I've got it's because I did a different cutout apparently than the one that I was grabbing. I was wondering why it wasn't showing up where I put it. The anchors here for 2, I might put that one back here. Make sure you've got it saved on. Another thing with this file is that I didn't put the point right along. My computer is frozen. That's okay. We'll just give it a second to catch up. Might try that again, see if we can get it back in good shape. I think that if we scrub the season, we would be seeing the cutout that we actually made. Which I don't remember which one it was. Alright, let's try that again. We're going to edit the mesh. I'm going to pop in the high and add an anchor in there. And that would be our 2. I kind of wanted it farther back in. And the other thing we want to do is add our points so that they're more along the actual pivot mark there. Kind of did that one poorly on that. And then we would save it out. If I was redoing this, I do need to pop over the medium and make the same changes. You've had suggestions to pop over the anchors and everything too. I think that would be a great addition for later. But we've got the anchor that would stay. So we're going to kind of save that out and then do the last things. Pop that small one in there. We whip the anchor in and then might move the point right onto the anchor we added and pop it in there. There we go. Now this one, we're going to rename it. It's going to be number 2. And it should be in a better position. Sometimes it's just a little harder to see what's going on in there, so I like to turn that off. I'm cutting through the top and the bottom, so I'm going to move that down even more. I had an extra one in there. And I can really go a little nuts folding these because they are on the underside. And so they're just sort of the ones hanging down. And let's see how we did all together. These are just a little extreme. I would say on the clusters farther out, they could probably lean down just a little bit. Or on the actual frond holding the entire thing, I could droop just a little bit more. I think they'll be better off. One of the things I like to do is add just a little bit of variation in the gravity on these guys so they don't look like they're all doing exactly the same thing, even though this is a very structured tree. And now we have it in a pretty good spot. One of the things I need to do is I have big bare spots where I need to add more clusters coming off. So I would go back to that main leaf and do some edits there. I'm going to unfocus just so we can see where we're at and make sure we're not doing too crazy in poly counts, and we're actually doing pretty good. I kind of like that there's some bare spots happening. I think I might keep with that. But I do think I want to add a couple more anchors in here. So we're going to go back to our bear. And I'm getting questions about does the new vertex target thing replace the tessellation slider? And do you always use some sort of real life reference when building a realistic looking tree? Then answer the first thing first. A new tessellation stuff doesn't replace it. It's just got extra stuff in there so you can use whatever you need. Let's take a look at the bear cutout. Bear. I should have organized these a little better so they're easier to get to. Generate vertices is something we actually had in V7 and it got taken out. We weren't sure people were using it, but a lot of people don't want to start from scratch and add all the points in there. The cool thing about generate vertices is, I'm not going to save this one, I'm just going to delete it so we can show you some of the goodies in here for kicks and giggles. It's okay to get distracted on what we're doing, I hope. And hi Adriana, thank you, appreciate that. Alright, one of the things that they have added in here for us is if you want to just take a look at this and say, alright, the tree is not here. This is the basic outline of the tree. This is going to say within the mask, try to put that many points in there. It's not going to be able to do it in 7 because I was pretty accurate, but we're going to see what it does. And said, we can't do that, so let's try it again. If I said 50, and did the same thing with the mask. Let's see if it is happier with that. Something's up with that. So I always let it do the whole image there. It's relatively the right spot. I added 20 in there. I don't know what I was thinking. No one ever wants 20 vertices in there. But it's not, I would recommend always moving them. Don't just quickly go in and add 7 or 3 because you will never, I personally don't think the computer will ever be smart enough to put these in as strategic a spot that you need. There's a challenge there. The dev people are like, we're gonna have to fix that later, but maybe they will be, I don't know. I guess technology could come a long way. Alright, we got way too many in there, and I lost sight of what I was doing, but I find it a lot easier sometimes than the generated vertex, just to go ahead and add the points in there. Tessellation, which I did on the cluster file, is really just an easy way to add that in there. It looks at the opacity cutout, and so that's why you see that these aren't wasted in here. You're always going to have weird folds with these. So if you were doing a frond and you were like, oh, I'll just put tessellation on and I won't add the little points, it's actually a better practice to not use tessellation for a games tree. And say you needed to have a lot of polygons in this where it's a grid. It's better to have your points lined up so they can fold across the spines. Like something like that would be a lot cleaner and easier to control. Hopefully that answers your question. Improved folding is in B8, I believe. It's been a while since I've taken a look at that, but you can put that on there to make more fold areas so they connect long ways. Yes, and you're absolutely right. Trying to visualize how the branch will distort and fold is just all about why we're actually putting these points where we're putting them. So we wanted to get back in here. We're going to go ahead and send back the one we started. We had 3 points to start with. We're going to add a couple more anchors. I really liked the bald spots on one of these branches, and so you guys can pick left or right. Which one do we keep bald? It's much easier to add more anchors and then just knock out some of them. Let's go ahead and add. Some of this is guesswork and feel for what it looks like after you get it on there. You want to kind of think about like how big the file is you're attaching on, and will it overlap? So this one and this one might overlap now, and so I'm gonna just kind of move it out so it has enough space. And we'll see how we did there. That's why I pointed that one out that way and this one out that way. Let's see how we did. I'm gonna send that one back out. And I'm gonna do less anchors on the lower LD maybe. I should have put them in the same spot. But you can have it lose. There we go. And let's see how we did. That one is actually doing a bug there because it's not displaying. I knew it was in there. I wasn't totally crazy the first time when I had the fronds not showing. But we do have them showing, and let's just see if selecting the material will help us out. There we go. I don't know why it does that, but hopefully we'll get that out. All right, and now we're looking a lot better. I like that there's a couple branches that definitely don't have leaves on them, and we still got a nice full area here. Let's talk about collision before we go ahead and add on to the next tree. You do want to take a moment. I would do this usually with the whole tree on, but since I've only added this one section, we're just going to do this. Turn collision back on. You don't have to use collision by any means, but there's a whole little logic problem here if you are going to use collision. The first logic thing is that our bare branches, we never really want them to go away. So these are going to stay. We're going to say collision set to nothing. Now, if you have a cluster file and you've got a bunch of small parts coming off of it, you really want them to kind of stick together. So if you decide to let these guys collide, you can decide whether you want it to act as one big unit, like these guys are all one cluster, and so if this big section runs into this big section, one of them's gonna win. For a game tree, this becomes complicated to think through sometimes, but you're gonna hit the collision, and you're going to say to also take the descendants if you want it to act as a big function together. So I'm losing way too many. That's probably not what we want to do for this tree, just because these are all in there kind of clustered together and they're all on these guys. And so, kind of say nothing there. I'm actually going to make these always win. I'm going to ignore the siblings, which would be any other leaves next to it. Which doesn't work for this one either, and so I'm actually going to just say nothing for the big ones as well. And I don't really have these guys running into each other, so it's not that much of a problem. So we're going to get to these little small ones. I don't really care if these overlap as much, but getting in there I might have a bit of an issue. And so I'm going to I'm just gonna let them fight it out, actually. I think I'm not gonna like do too much there. I could have them ignore the siblings so they would not care if they knocked into this one. But that one's really the one that I care about if these guys are overlapping each other. So if I had one hanging down onto a top one, it will take it out right now. If I wanted the top ones to always win, I would say to knock out others only. That will keep these guys winning on top, and it won't pay attention to any of these guys. It won't knock out this, the big one holding it. This is what I meant by the logic game here. But yeah, it won't knock out the big one below it because I have the big one set to nothing. So you don't have to worry about that one. I think for the sake of this, I do have just so many of these guys that it's okay if some of them get knocked out. we're gonna see poly count wise if I can just keep them on the tree, because it does look nice and full and crispy, and we like that. Crispy probably wasn't the right word, but we'll go with it. All right, the next thing we want to do is zoom out to our tree, and we're going to add these to our other main branches here. I'm actually just going to grab the whole thing, Control C, Control V, add them on, Control V again. A lot of people don't realize that if you do have multiple generators, you can edit these guys all together. The parameters that you can adjust are there. So if we do any changes to these guys, we can grab them all together, or we can make them do different things. Right off the bat, it looks like this guy, we did a lot of extreme bending to where that was kind of like an adjustment. So we'll do some more bends in here to get these into position. And we want to avoid these guys hitting the branch here. And so I'm actually just going to grab the spine that these are sitting on and push them forward. I'm going to go to Generation Styles, and then push the first up a little bit. And now these guys are starting a little bit farther back. I'm going to actually push those away from the last to fill it in that way. And the one thing that I don't really like about this is that we made them all swooping that way, and we kind of need some secondary branches making a crown up here. So on this one side, I'm going to add a single branch. It's going to be an actual real branch, not a bare one. We're going to move him to the exact position we want, which is kind of here. If I didn't do that, I think I would actually put this on Generation Style and put it on Bifurcation. And we're also going to say after the bend edit, so that means that the edit I made is going to put me a branch there, and that ensures me that I've got that natural growth happening there. I super like that. I'm okay with the fact that it added 2 right there, because if I pull them down, let's try to balance it. There we go. So we have 1. I'm going to make this one do a planer, which I don't have in the scene. I did add a magnet, but I'm just going to add planer real fast. I, for the life of me, don't know if it's like planar. It's a weird word. And we could bend this into position if we wanted. I'm just using the properties to get it going. I kind of wanted it to go that way, and I don't remember where our magnet is. It was over here. So I could kind of use the magnet maybe to get it more that direction. Or we can have it kind of balance out the fact that we did it so angular in that direction. I dig it. We'll just keep it there. All right, we're gonna go ahead and add, before we do any editing, just keep it low poly. We're gonna make sure that we didn't add a crazy amount in there. I do have some angularness there, and I don't know that I really care because it's so high up. And I'm gonna keep the weld just because it's 1 branch. We are gonna go back to standard, and we're at 33, which is a lot smaller than our other one. And we're gonna kind of copy and paste these guys again. I hate to... I'm not that fancy. We do lots of copy and pasting here. We're gonna add that on and see what that did and just kind of shape it out. I really want a fill area for this side as well. And so what I might do, we've got polygons here. I told myself my limit was 50, and so we're just gonna add another singular branch. I think I might actually just copy this guy and paste it in there so he can do more of the same thing. I'm gonna put him on interval, and I'm gonna put 2. And we'll see what we're doing there. I'm gonna push them all the way back kind of towards the start. Wow, I did not need to go negative on that. I just needed them to be towards the start. Because it's on interval, the frequency will adjust where that's actually showing. So if it's not where you want it, you can always use the position to push them up and down. But we want this to be somewhat randomizable, so we'll keep it there. I'm gonna do a real weird one with this. I'm gonna ancestor it around that way because I'm trying to fill out this little area here and make a crown. And I think that's a really nice bonsai-ish shape anyways. We're gonna make them a little longer. And then probably bend to give them a little zigzag as well, just so they look nice and arty. These guys are welded because they are a little higher and they're a little smaller. I'm actually just gonna kill the weld because it's polygons. Right now I have the same amount of polygons on these. We probably can optimize it just a little bit more because we're gonna hide all that with these upper branches anyways. We're gonna grab our bend tool really fast and just give this a nice little squiggle. And y'all know about the squiggle lady on YouTube, I hope. But that's what I felt like when I said that just now. To answer Mr. X question, do you guys ever use randomize, the randomize all button on certain parts? I think I've never seen you do it. I have never done it in the stream. All of our store trees randomize. The entire tree randomizes where you can just hit it and get the tree that you want. We tried to build them very specifically so that the perimeters work. On this tree, I would not want to randomize my stitches. Those are very specific edits. It's a very customized tree. But all of these I'm going to be able to grab and I could randomize. We can do that at the end. I'm going to hit save really fast. Good thing to keep doing. And we want to add our final branches here, and yet again we are going to copy paste. I'm actually going to copy and paste this one because I had pushed them up a bit farther. I think that was that one. Nope, I guessed wrong. I guessed wrong again. What set was this? Okay, it was the bottom. All right, we're going to grab that and copy. Paste again, and these are going on the end of these branches here. Alright, in V9 we have this neat cool thing where you can actually grab these guys and color code them. I love it. I like changing the background so these guys kind of like easier. And so I'll do that often, more often than actually renaming. I don't know if that's a bad practice or a good practice because you can keep these very organized, but this just really helps my brain. Thank you for adding that, dev team. Oops, I missed one. Alright, icon colors, background, pick a color. Alright, we don't really need to keep going. I definitely made them very garish. They did not match. Alright, let's hide our guy there, and I'm really liking it. It's kind of arty, it's kind of organic. We didn't even add a whole lot of variation in there. When you step back like this and you start to see that these leaf clusters are all doing the same thing, it's always a good idea to do those final touches on the end there. Now what we would do is, one, I don't like that area, I probably would fix that just a little bit. I'm going to use the freehand tool just because I got it and it's fast. There we go. These guys got a little big, and it's because the actual spine holding it is a little big, and so we're going to grab that one, which is this guy here. We're going to make them just a little shorter, and that will help match it up. You can also do the radius of the branch itself. I'm going to make it fatter the whole way down, so I'm going to grab a point here and lift that up, and that's going to help us match. You want to kind of do a 360 while you're working. You guys have seen me modeling for weeks now, and you know that I always back up when you want to see this tree shape from here. It's a good rule of thumb. So we're going to break up the clusters and make them do a little bit different there. One of the things I'm noticing is that they're all the same size on the branch. I think we added a little bit of variation, probably not enough. I'm just going to grab two of them, and we're going to the spine tab. I added one, and we'll just do percent apparent and add a little bit of variation in there. Let's see what we get. You can also use the curves to break these down. Like you could make the ones on the inside a little bigger. by grabbing the parent curve and saying, according to that branch, we want the ones on the inside to be a little bit longer. And that is helping shape things up. These are too stagnant in the same area, so I'm going to grab those. Let's see, you don't want repeat shapes unless you really want that arty look. We're going to go in here and add some small amounts in the fold, align, and face. Just tiny enough to make a difference. And you'll want to zoom back in and make sure that you did those edits and you're not knocking into your cluster, but small numbers are your friends. And that's looking pretty good. I still have some repeats I probably would do. One of the cool things is that you can really change up the variation if you have these different sections coming off, because you can do different perimeters in each one. So for on these guys, I probably would grab all three at the same time and go in and add some variations in there. The twist is something I like to add in a lot too. If you have the poly counts, this one's a really good one for actually hiding the flatness of the mesh. On the big one here, I'm going to make sure that we definitely have some twist on that. I don't know if I added it. Nope, I didn't. I'm going to add just a very small amount on that. Alright, and we should be in better shape now. Totally okay with it. And make sure I did not miss any questions. I think we're good. The very last thing we're going to do for the stream is add Photogrammetry. I wanted to mention this one little extra feature in here. I know we added the box on the other one. We can do that too if you would like me to. You guys can tell me in chat if you want me to add the Quixel box in there. Gonna hit save. But I wanted to show you the targets, and if we the thing that adds a huge amount of realism to the bottom of a tree is that you have little new shoots coming off, and right here it's just trunk. It definitely looks very photogrammetry, and it's just really hard to catch those little details. So a lot of people would be like, how do I attach that? Because this is our mesh. And so to do that, we would go in and add a target. It's under the photogrammetry tag. And you might not notice it at first because it's in the scene. We're going to add a couple of them. I'm just going to add a number. We want to make sure the show targets is on. So there they are, and that's why they weren't showing up. I don't need that many. I don't know why I added that many, but I'm going to make sure I have as many as I need before I start. Off of the target, you're going to add your material. For this, I'm just going to add a leaf mesh, and it's going to be, excuse me, we're going to add a leaf, and it's going to be our bare material. And bear, where are you? There it is. Okay. And you can see it's very tiny. All right, these guys are going to point to our mesh. The first thing I'm going to do is, these are all node edits and they're all very specific places. I'm going to go to the Gen tab and I'm going to make these, I'm going to go to the settings and make these not manual, but I'm going to find the closest point. That means that screen space, wherever I move these around, it will try to point towards the mesh. If I do the laser, which is my personal favorite because we're a tree program that has lasers, I mean, that's cool. You can just actually push the screen space keys. I hit the E key just now, and I can move these around and point them at the mesh. Now, the leaf mesh itself is sitting straight up. We just need to edit this out so it's facing the right direction. You can do a node edit on these, or we can switch back to gen mode and actually do them. I'm just going to put sky influence on it so it's out. And then we are actually going to make them sideways. So I'm going to do right on these. And then I'm going to twist them. I might have to do up a little bit. There we go. So it's not perfect, but we will get it a little bit more where we want it. So I've got 3 more of these guys, and they're all set to laser. The other modes in this, if you're in the node mode, this is very handy here. This one that's pointing out, and I have it where I want it, I can actually lock it, and that way I won't keep budging it, like if I accidentally grabbed it. That's something I like to do a lot. If you were adding a branch onto the tree, it needs to be in a good position to weld. It's very apparent if it's not welding, but it'll also give you a little exclamation point. But yes, you can do this with a regular branch as well. I kind of wanted it to be on the other side of the tree. If you do this with a branch, you need to check your Z coordinates to make sure that you're not overlapping. We probably do that one on a more in-depth build. Because right now, I'm just kind of adding the little extra garnishes, we'll call them. I'm going to take this leaf mesh and just node edit it, because I guess I node edited the other one, but we're going to make this one, make sure it's in a happy place. And it's not bad. I'm satisfied. I might put another one right over there. And we'll just kind of... It's so easy to like not quite understand where you are in screen space. That's always a problem I have. We put this one on target. I grabbed the wrong one, apparently. I'm still on that one. This is the one I was supposed to be moving. Wow, my steering. Y'all should see me drive a car. I kind of want this one on this guy here. Apparently, I'm just nowhere near it. Or like, get it straight on and get it to point at that guy. But yeah, these guys can be very specifically take a while to set up. Yeah, that's okay. It's still not quite hitting it. There we go. And I think that's not the loveliest place for it, but it works for what we're doing. I'm gonna go back out of node mode. Those purple things were the spines. When you go into node mode, it shows you the spine underneath. Thought I'd explain that. And I didn't have anybody say that they really, really wanted me to bring in the pot. You guys saw it. All I did was put a mesh on the bottom, and that's why this tree is floating. I will say that a tip, if you want to make good use of those Quixel assets, is you can actually bring it in as a leaf mesh instead of the mesh and move it around and do all the same things with it, but you can have the scaling. So you would be able to use the scale for the XYZ, and that's all I did with that concrete pot. It was a square, and I squished it down to make it look more to size, I guess it'd be the same. All right. The last thing that you would do with this tree real fast is you'd run the wind wizard and get it set up for wind. You also want to go to global properties and turn on the LODs. We are going to put this to 3 just real fast. Shouldn't take too long. Make sure that this guy tests okay. Right there, I've got a pretty big pop, and that pop is coming from, it looks like the one holding it. On the main tab here, I might grab it on the LOD and make it not transition on the bottom one, so it can hold the shape. And we'll go back to the top. I haven't done a lot of LOD settings, but you really want to look at it farther back when you do this and really scrub these guys. I think these leaves are getting too big, and I probably can lose a few more of them. One of the other things I'm seeing is that these aren't fighting right, so they need variation in them. You can grab all of your leaves at once and grab these guys. We're going to go to the LOD weight right here and make sure that there's a 0.15 in there. It looks like we're in good shape. We definitely want that on. The fronds themselves also need a little bit of variation in the weight so that they're not all fighting. What that does is when you have a 3 branch off right there, if you don't have any variation in there, one side of the tree might disappear versus the other one. So you want to add a little bit of variance in there. And that should help us out. Yeah, and our leaves are just too big. We're going to go back to global properties and we are going to make sure that these aren't growing quite so big. And that's looking okay. I don't really care if the little branches go away at that point. Our last test is we're going to do the screen area close, and we're gonna zoom in that way. And what you really wanna look for is popping. And it looks like our branches might not be losing. These might not be set up. So what we wanna do is we're gonna go to scribe mode real fast. We're gonna zoom out, and that's correct. We did not lose those very much. Let's put it back to manual. So what we can do there is grab that branch. We're gonna go to the LOD settings, and we want the length and the radial segments to lose as we zoom in and out. So we're gonna drop those down. It might not work completely correctly because it is the one with the stitch, and so we might actually need to keep what I'm looking at right here is this transition as I drop. So as I lower those, I don't want a gap or a space. I think we're in good shape. We can kind of do that. We're going to copy this curve out and actually put it on our other branches. And we'll have to look at these pretty carefully and make sure we don't have any oops in there. I'm just lowering these guys. You can really fine tune these guys and spend a lot of time getting it to snuff and to really, really drop down. For our scenario, we're going to back out to where we were. We're going to put it on, I'm on the lowest LOD now. We're going to make sure there's no obvious oversight on my part. I'm not really dropping down as much as I should. I'm going very, very, very small amount. So I would need to be really aggressive on those values and go through each of the branches and make sure that they really, really drop. You can optimize these as well. So on the upper canopy, I would have optimization on, and the lower LODs, that means that as I lower the LOD, I'm going to try to optimize more. And we want to make sure there's no slicing there. The last thing you can check to make sure these are going down as far as you need is to, I'll answer your question in just a second, is to take more or less. So in this tree, I've got so many leaves on there that I might need to take a few more because I'm really having to keep this big mesh down here. I don't even remember if we loaded in 3 separate ones. Did we? Oh, see, we didn't. So I don't have a lower LOD in that, and that's my fault. When I processed this mesh, I did not make the lower one. So I'm stuck with a really high 33K mesh in the scene. So that one's probably my fault for why it's not LODing quite as low as we would like it. Excuse me. All right, and to answer your question, is it possible to use the grow scale for the lowest LOD? The first 2 LODs are really close, and so the growth can be seen easily. To do that, you would put the grow scale and grab them up here. You can make the scale factor set. I don't know if the curve would really actually do that for you. You probably would want to, let's see, use the profile curve. I'm thinking this through. So I think that the growth scale, I think this profile curve is the size and not like the end of the branch would be bigger than the branch. I don't think it is per LOD. That's actually something that we could probably instigate later. It's actually a good idea, but maybe to have another curve in there so that you could have it grow or LOD a little bit more aggressively on the last one. So that's a great idea. So to answer your question right now, there's not. I had to think that through. So, all right. We are going to wrap up this tree for the day. I really didn't show you the wind, but if you were to do this and turn the wind on, you would go to the wind. You would hit the wind wizard really fast. Got a lot of leaves and needles going on in there, so that'll probably be a little wonky. And hit OK. From there, we would set our wind adjustments on. Excuse me. It's going to be probably a little wonky. Right now, I've got the tree bending a little too much at the top. So on the height exponent, on the global motion, this is what controls the entire tree's movement. I'm going to push that up a little higher so I don't have that weird wobbliness there. And then we are going to... This one in particular, maybe put the weight down. So in animation, we'll put that weight value down just a little bit and see if that helps us out. Just a little bit more realism. And then we're going to try to use our wind settings to make sure these guys wiggle and blow in the wind the way we want them to. Right now, it's a little jello-y. And so one of the things we could do is go down to our ripple, which is going to be... here. Excuse me. We might actually turn down the frequency on that guy just a little bit. We want him to flutter, but we don't want him to have that motion in there quite so repeated. One of the things I like to do to break up this motion is to across these guys actually use a curve. So on the animation you can use the weight curve scaler, and the leaves on the inside of the tree, if you don't want them to blow so much, we're going to say according to the tubes that they're sitting on. Let's just use the big branch that these whole things are sitting on. I want a little bit less of a ripple movement on the inside, so I'm going to turn it down, and that'll kind of break up what we're seeing. That's just my little tip there. I'll give you guys a few moments if you guys want to answer any questions before I sign off for today, but that's going to wrap up our tree build. I think we did pretty good compared to the one we were trying to make. So it's always kind of interesting to see if they end up the same. And yeah, if you guys have any more questions, just drop them in the chat and I will try to get to them. Last time I signed off so fast, I didn't mean to. So... I was letting it open, the one that we had from last week. This one we've got one of our cool new HDRIs in there. I don't know if you realized that, but in V9 you guys can load in specific lighting and light your sky according to your scene. This was the base I was talking about earlier, and I did a much better job of placing our little tiny guys. The very last thing we did not do in this is I have bake stitches on these guys. And before you export this and put it in your game scene, the one thing that you would want to do is go back to your mesh tab. And you're going to go to the material bar. And this would be the very last step here. You're going to create and assign a new material. I want to keep this as high as a resolution as I can, just as this is wrapped up. And that's what you would do, is send that out. You don't want to write over your old bark. You want to say this is your new baked material. And hit save. And what this does is, I'll give it a second. The atlas that you have, your original mesh, unwrapped into, it's saving it back into it. So now I have a new Big Mac material. I have a brand new atlas, and it has saved all of my little transitions for me in here. The V8 modeler, the SpeedTree Indie, and SpeedTree Games Full, we have the stitch, but it was a band, and so there was an extra texture and wasted extra texture. So this is perfect for games. It's making sure you're not wasting any space in here. You can export this out now, send it straight to your game. You would say export to game. I'm going to send this to Unreal. And you can actually preview your atlas now if you need to do any adjustments there. You can resize these and move these if they're not in the right spot. I like SpeedTree to just do it for me. I find that it does a pretty decent job of figuring out how this is all going to fit in here. And the question is, I'm always getting unskinned vertices when exporting FBX to 3ds and having them fill up manually. If you're using a trial version of the software, there's going to be some vertices missing. If you're using an older version of SpeedTree that we haven't updated, it's possible that there's like a bug in there or something that we've missed. But that definitely should not be doing that. So if you do have a test file for us and you want to go ahead and send us in that way, we'd be happy to test there. But just keep in mind that if you are on like a trial version of the software, it does remove some of the vertices when you do an FBF export. We're just making sure I got them all. I'm checking all the different platforms to make sure I have got all of our questions in. And hopefully that answered. The other thing that you would do before you export this out is you can choose a preset. I would want to make sure that this is set to Unreal, or if I'm sending it to Unity, for Unity. And the reason you want to do that is because our scaling is slightly different for each one, and this is going to set it up to send it out at the right size for you. So for Unreal, that number in there is pretty important. So I'm gonna not export that out. We can do more exporting and actually building scenes later and all that. There we go. Okay, and Mr. X, if you want to send us that file, it's support@speedtree.com. We'd be happy to test that and get that set up. I'm going to go ahead and sign off for the day. Thank you guys so much for watching and for joining in the stream. We really loved the questions this time. And join us next week. We are doing VFX grass, lighting those guys and setting them up. It should be pretty simple. Nothing too hardcore. And we're going to go into games grass the next week. So excited for those, and thank you for watching. Bye!
Baby, you know I'm the boss. If I want it, I want it all. ain't gonna listen to you. I'm too busy making a move for number one, not number two. Baby, you know I'm the boss. If I want it all. I win it whatever the cost. So you could do you or follow